Hello, everybody. Welcome to Peaches and Power Bombs. I am one of your co-hosts, Majestic Marie, along with Alora Preslee. And we are just so excited today. We have a lovely group of ladies with us for our very first ladies panel talking about the past, the present, and the future of women's wrestling. And I'm all giddy and excited. So, yeah, we'll go ahead and, Alora, if you want to say a few words, and then we'll introduce our guests.
Yes, couple months ago, Marie comes up, messages me, and she goes, "For Women's Month in March, I would like to do a women's roundtable, be something different, and it's just women sharing their views on wrestling, women's wrestling in general." And I thought it was an awesome idea. So just to see this come to fruition is pretty cool. I'm so excited. And I'm glad these ladies could join us tonight. And we're excited to have y'all. And Kiana's back with us this time. Marie's on here. So,
Yes. Thank you
yeah.
so much for filling in for me when I was sick last year.
Oh, no
So
problem. No problem.
All right. So,
Kiana,
we'll let everybody introduce themselves and we'll go from there.
Kiana, we can start with you.
Yeah. So if you haven't seen me last time, my name is Kiana, lifelong wrestling fan and a good friend of Alora. We've known each other for many years, so it's great to be back.
Okay, Michaela.
My name is Michaela Peterson. I am a videographer local to Atlanta, Georgia, and I work primarily in wrestling. I do a lot of video work for wrestling. I do promo work. I shoot the shows. I do all of that fun stuff. So I've been in this wrestling world for 3 years or so, like deeply invested in it. I did not grow up with it, but then I started to fall in love with it as I started to work more in it. So, yeah, that's me.
All right, Shanti.
I'm Shantiano, but everybody call me Shanti, and I'm a wrestling fan, and this is my Aunt Tina. So she dragged me here, not playing. She actually asked me last week, and I was like, of course, it's dealing with women. I'm going to be there.
Yeah, we're pretty excited. All right, so before we get into any of our topics, we'll go ahead and pull up some comments. Dudes at ringside, I'm guessing that's Joe saying love the intro, and Shanti's mom is watching.
Hi.
Saying happy Women's Month to everyone, and our friend the Saint from the Real Wrestling community is here, Ron. It says good evening. So thank you guys for joining us. Yeah. So to start things off, we're kind of going in order a little bit, and we'll start with the past, I guess, and just talking about some of the trailblazers in women's wrestling, people who might have really set the tone for what we see on television today. And Alora, we can start with you and just talk about some of these great women who we might have grown up watching.
Okay. So about 3 days ago, I started reading Sisterhoods of the Square Circle, and it is such a good read so far. I've only been partway through it, but they talk about they really go back into the history of how it started, like back in like late 1800s, early 1900s as a carnival attraction. I never knew that, um yeah, it has had a complete revolution, and we will mention revolution later, but they do mention they mention Fabulous Moolah, Mae Young. Then you have those that aren't as mentioned, but if you ever listen to any of these, maybe Natty's mentioned them before. Some of them mentioned these ladies: Mildred Burke, June Byers, Judy Grable, Ethel Johnson, Cora Combs. Those were ladies in the early 1900s that really stepped forward and put themselves out there for women's wrestling at the time. But as a young girl, I started watching wrestling when I was 11. This was in 1995, and the only women that were on there was Alundra Blaze and I think Bertha Faye. um, and then you had your ballets too. You had Sunny, Sable, you had Marlena, aka Terry Runnels. I think I've always um, to see wrestling where it started, or women's wrestling where it started and what it is now. It is amazing. A lot of us didn't think this would happen. Women as where they are now, main eventing WrestleMania, the biggest wrestling show of the year, and yeah. So this is it's so gratifying. It's so fulfilling to see because a lot of us, other girls they look up to singers or actresses or you know all that stuff. Like for us, growing up watching pro wrestling, it was very few and far in between. And now you see, I think WWE in general makes it a point. Well, AEW too makes it a point to show little girls in the audience um, clapping for somebody or have a sign for somebody. It's really cute to see. I wish we had that back then, but we didn't. So I know I'm rambling at this point, and I could go on all day, but I wrote for Diva Dirt a couple years back. I still love to write for them. I just haven't been in the mood to write. I had a lot going on, but being a voice for women's wrestling is definitely my biggest honor because I feel like I've been part of the experience growing up, watching everything, and being able to tell stories through my perspective. Um, I think trying to be a voice for them. That was like my main goal, and I'm glad that I could be a part of it. So.
Okay, Kiana.
Well, I'm on the younger side, so I started watching wrestling. I'd say probably during like the height of like the ruthless aggression era, so like the 2000s, early to mid 2000s. So you had like Trish Stratus, Lita, China shortly before she had left, Jazz, who I was a big fan of. She was like the first women's wrestler that I became a fan of when I started watching. So women like that I really looked up to, particularly Lita and Jazz, because of like how badass I thought they were. They were just pretty cool. And then as I got deeper into wrestling, I got into Japanese wrestling. So I was really heavily into All Japan Women's Pro Wrestling, Stardom, and honestly, my all-time favorite female wrestler is a Japanese wrestler named Manami Toyota. She was a wrestler for 30 plus years, and she was just absolutely phenomenal. And other favorites, I have tons of them, but also Amazing Kong, Aja Kong, Sasha Banks, and currently Bianca Belair. She's like my top favorite right now. All of these like strong and powerful women who not only embrace their femininity, but also embrace like their strength, like their natural strength and their athleticism. That was just something that was very appealing to me. And of course, I've been a wrestling fan probably like 15 or so years now. But even in that short period of time, I saw how much it's evolved from, the ruthless aggression era where women were prominently featured, but not like still on the par of the men in the sense that they didn't really have like those main event moments or those main event matches. Or if they had like gimmick matches, it was pretty rare. Like the first gimmick match that I saw was Victoria versus, I think I failed to remember. I think it was Victoria versus Lita in a steel cage match. I freaked out when I first saw that match because it was rare during that time period. But nowadays it's like normal. So even during that short period of 15 years, you definitely see like a big difference of how women are portrayed on TV.
Yeah, during that time, it was interesting if you go back and listen to some interviews that, like Finley, because he was the he worked with the women during that time and everything, and talking about how they would tell them to slow down the women's matches, but he was teaching them how to work a match just like the men would, and not teaching them women's wrestling, but teaching just the traditional style or whatever, and they would have to scale back for a couple weeks to keep the heat off, and then they go right back into it, and it was like a back and forth. So they've been fighting for this position for a really long time. Michaela, you say that you've only been kind of into the scene for a few years now. What do you think of this crazy world that we're in, and seeing the women?
So I primarily am in deathmatch. My partner is a deathmatch wrestler. So deathmatch is basically wrestling, but with different weapons. So like light tubes, glass, gusset plates, everything else. And I will say there are several women that have honestly, I think that the women in deathmatch were given a lot more opportunity, frankly, than women in mainstream wrestling. So there's a woman named Megumi Kudo who is absolutely, Megumi Kudo.
Yeah.
Can I curse on this show? Is that okay? No. Okay.
As long as it's not the F word.
Okay, good. She's a badass. She is a badass. She's like the definition of like absolute, like she did a match against Shark, which was an exploding barbed wire match. And it was wild. And she was doing stuff that like, people just weren't seeing in America. And this was in the 80s and 90s probably that she was wrestling like this. And she was just going absolutely bananas, just crazy. And then there's another wrestler, her name's Mickey Knuckles. She's been wrestling for 20 some odd years, and she's also a hardcore deathmatch wrestler. And she's had to go through the ringer, obviously, of being a woman in this industry, but she's gained a lot of respect from the men within deathmatch wrestling. So I will say there's a lot of very problematic, sexist things that have happened within mainstream wrestling. I think brawn panty matches is a very good example of that. But within this realm of deathmatch wrestling, there honestly has been a lot of men fighting women like equals, like men. They'll fight you like a man, and I think that when it comes to those kinds of trailblazers, the deathmatch women have really kind of forged a path for, I think, a lot of women in wrestling, whether mainstream wrestling knows it or not,
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's funny because a lot of the women in mainstream wrestling who want to kind of venture and, play around with those kinds of matches always get criticism. Britt Baker and Thunder Rosa had a lights out match like a year or so ago, and it was fantastic. And I'm going to be honest, deathmatch wrestling is not my cup of tea whatsoever.
That's okay.
But I can appreciate what they're doing when it's in the right context, when the story itself is being told really well. So I really liked that match, and Ruby Soho and I can't remember the other girl, but they were in something a street fight, I believe, and it was insane. And they got a lot of criticism for bleeding during that match. And I'm like, John Moxley bleeds every 5 seconds. And, but, so
well,
why are we?
I will say this. This is so funny to me. I've had wrestlers tell me, male wrestlers, after the Thunder Rosa Britt Baker match, which again, absolute banger, just perfect. They were like, well, I wasn't going to take tax, but then after seeing Britt Baker take tax, now I have to, because I have to be a man. And I'm just like,
upstage.
Your masculinity is questionable if you have to see a woman do it and then feel like you have to do it now because, whatever. But yeah, that match, Trailblazers, when it comes to Trailblazers in mainstream media, I know that this was recent, but mainstream wrestling, Britt Baker, Thunder Rosa, goes down in history as being a very, very important match for women.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I was going to mention AEW in terms of the hardcore matches and stuff. One point I want to bring up, and this is another trailblazer, Mickie James. I actually first saw her when she was in TNA as Alexis Lurie. She was in Raven's Flock, and she would do the craziest things like during the matches and stuff. She would take table bumps and all this stuff.
Mhm.
And so yeah, I was like, oh man. I was like, this girl is brutal, you know. And fast forward now, Mickie James and trailblazer in her own right, future WWE Hall of Famer, Pro Wrestling Hall of Famer at one point, and she's definitely a name that comes up in the conversation.
All right, Shanti, you're our youngin over here.
I'm young, I'm old. Since y'all been talking, since I want to go ahead and get my kind of death match person. I know, like, the first woman I seen, they were doing like crazy stuff, and I was like, nobody was doing that. It was Lita. I'm like, this girl up here getting off a top rope and jumping down. Like, no other woman was doing that, you know. And like me and my brother, we have the ladder match DVD with like all the ladder matches. And, you know, she was with Matt Hardy and Jeff Hardy. So she would come out there and get on top of the ladder and trying to get the championships built for them. And then they would push the ladder and she would fall through the table. I'm like, why no other girl ain't doing that? And I would just be like, what? So I love Lita because she was like that girl that's kind of like, yeah, I can jump off a table and all this stuff and I'll still go back to the back and be okay. It's kind of like, okay, I see you being tough. And I like Trish Stratus. I mean, at first she started off kind of like a sex symbol, but then she kind of transferred into an actual wrestler. So it's kind of like I liked to see her transition from like kind of sexy to I'm sexy and powerful. That makes sense. It's kind of like I can be pretty and kick your booty at the same time. it's like you can pick which side you want to be on. And for her and Lita to be going against each other, main eventing, it was just like something I think no woman expected, and I think the guys didn't expect it to be that good and to get that much recognition at the time. Because kind of like, women, you know, just throw them out there for like a little break. It was kind of like the women were just like a break match. It's kind of like, you know, we finna go get some popcorn. We be back. It was kind of like that. So I like Trish. I like Miss Elizabeth. She kind of made the way for like women managers. It was kind of like she didn't have to be violent like Sensational Sherry, because Sensational Sherry scared the crap out of me. But I
couldn't stand her growing up.
I'm like, that whole voice sound like chalk nails coming. Like she don't sound right. Like she looks scary.
You scared me too.
See, me and Keanu the same boat. It's kind of like that woman is scary. She's like some off a Nightmare off of Elm Street. It was weird. But it's kind of like you looked at her, you looked at Sherry, and then you look at Miss Elizabeth. It's like two total opposites. Miss Elizabeth, she didn't have to sound like Sensational Sherry voice, sound like some chalk on the wrong chalkboard. She was just very pleasant, innocent. She used her beauty to get men to lose against Macho Man. It was kind of like Macho Man knew what he was doing, bringing Miss Elizabeth out there. But I love how she used her grace and elegance, and then have to she didn't have to do crazy stuff. But like I said, I like Lita too. So it's kind of like growing up, I got like a mix of everybody. So now I like Bianca Belair. I mean, hey, she's a black woman that come out here and kick booty every night, and she just like, you know, it's not many black women wrestlers out there. So it's kind of like when I see one, it's kind of like, you go girl. Even if everybody else dislike them, like you got it, you do you. So it's different to see everybody's mix of women wrestlers going up, because, you know, like Michaela, she just can't get into it, but she do mostly death matches. So it's kind of like she got mostly women that's going to go out there and cut a man up with something. It's not like you got the Mick Foley version of a girl, and then kind of like Tina and I and you know and Kiana, everybody else on here, we grew up with it, you know, kind of evolving. So I think it's cool. But Michaela can look back and see like, okay, this is where we came from. Okay, we building up. So I like how it is now, where it's like it ain't weird to see a women's match be main event at a pay-per-view. It's like I like to see that because then that means we involving as people to accept that we can do just as much as a man wrestler can do. So, you know, I mean, everybody have their own things. So yeah, that's my picks.
Well,
Okay.
and I will say this really quick because I know that this is recent, but we need to talk about these trailblazers because we haven't yet. We need to talk about the 4 horsewomen, Charlotte Flair, Becky Lynch, Bailey, and Sasha, because they are the reason why women's wrestling mainstream is the way that they are now.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I agree.
The match against Bailey and Sasha for the NXT title in Brooklyn was, I call it the Citizen Kane of women's wrestling because it is literally just like, it's an imperfect match for sure, but it's perfect. You know what I mean? Like there are moments where they got the crowd on their side in a way that they've never seen before, and they did moves that they weren't supposed to do, but they did anyway, and then they impressed everybody. So like Sasha and Bailey, that match was a trailblazer match, and that is like why we have Britt Baker, why we have Jade, why we have these women's wrestlers that are viewed as actual threats, is because we had these women in 2014, 2013, whatever, fully coming through and shining. And, you know, I'm forever a big Charlotte Flair fan. So
I agree. And
we're going to hold that thought right quick because we got a bunch of comments. But we're going to continue with that conversation. Give me just a moment here. Up. It's Geek, Metal Geek, dudes are ringside.
Hi, Geek.
Ray all day. He's a regular of ours. Great intro. Adam Cole's King, March 29th. Oh, hail the King. Is that his birthday?
No, that's when he's going to wrestle his first match back.
Good for him.
About time.
Yeah. Shane, another regular, says hello.
He's been through it.
When I started watching, there were women like Missy Hyatt, Sunshine Angel, and Dirty White Girl, etc. And yes, he's right. Shane is our old school guy here. You can't forget those either. There's so many unsung heroes, I believe.
Yeah,
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
And then you had Sapphire. She was with Dusty Rhodes.
They did the
80s, I want to say.
Yeah, they did the first mixed tag team match at a WrestleMania.
Right.
Oh yeah, they did.
You all right, Chris from that Straight Up Wrestling show. He's on his YouTube channel. He says hello. Ray Dean said Wendy Richter was the first woman he's watched. She's a trailblazer.
Yeah.
Hall of Famer too.
Yeah, Hall of Famer, that's right. And I want to say she participated. Didn't she participate in the first WrestleMania?
Yeah,
Yes.
her. She won the title off of Leilani Kai.
Okay.
That night with Cyndi Lauper in her corner. So
that's right.
Rock Wrestling era.
Okay. There's Joe. He says hello all. He's gonna have a new podcast coming up called Twins at Ringside. So when that comes up, y'all definitely check it out. Here's Geek again. He's on his new page. I think he was talking about the Sasha and Bailey match, I want to say. We will talk about that more in a second. Geek also says Candice LeRae was doing hardcore matches before the Britt Baker Thunder Rosa, but they took it to mainstream.
Yeah.
She was in PWG. PWG was doing those matches.
Candice LeRae got kicked in the face with a shoe that had tacks on the bottom of it by Matt Jackson. Yeah. Crazy.
Shane says y'all need to go watch some old school world class championship wrestling. Sunshine and Precious was great. Thank you for the tip. This is a great thing.
Absolutely.
This is the great thing about wrestling too. Is like you could go back and it's never too late to discover this stuff. There's so much content out there these days. It's just
So easy.
Geek said he was there for that, and I'm jealous. And we'll talk about, like I said, we'll talk about it. Timothy, he says, good evening. Wade from Ring Scoops, a friend of our page. Candice LeRae versus Hudson Envy from AWS in 2013 was an insane and revolutionary hardcore match.
I think I saw that one.
Okay. And Arlene, hello. Thank you for joining the show. There is so much to fall in love with. I agree.
Yeah.
We did whoops, what did I do? I messed up there. Okay. What I was gonna say, we did a round table last week with Saint and some other guys, and we talked about that match with Bailey and Sasha. And I had told them, I said, I think everybody kind of knew that was the turning point for women in wrestling. And I explained to, for me as a woman, seeing hardly no women wrestling and the gimmick matches like Kiana mentioned, and we seen like a slow build of the evolution, and then that match was just the tipping point. And I think that's my favorite match of all time, because as a woman it meant so much more to me.
Yeah.
Like, this is here to stay. This is no BS. This is here to stay. They cannot ignore the critical reception, the crowd, the crowd on their feet. It was very emotional. It was very prolific. And yeah, like, I cry every time I watch that match, and it's because it's such a personal match to me. It's on so many personal levels. And it's a beautiful thing to see.
One person that I want to talk about real quick before we move on to our next topic is Gail Kim.
Yes.
I look up to Gail Kim so much, because when she was in WWE, she was not happy with the way that they were being treated. And instead of just sitting there and taking it, she stood up for herself, and she said, I'm not going to take this abuse anymore. And she left, and she went to TNA and other places, and she made a name for herself. And, she didn't have to do all the goofy stuff, and she really helped build up that Knockouts roster. And her and Awesome Kong had amazing matches.
Yeah, they were like the trailblazers for that division.
Absolutely.
Their feud is actually one of my favorite TNA feuds ever.
Yes,
that's how good it was.
That's one of my favorite women's wrestling feuds ever. Yeah, Gail Kim, I feel like she was in WWE, right place, wrong time. But it all worked out. She pretty much, when I think of the Knockouts division, Gail Kim's the first person I think about, because she is the Knockouts division. She was very, very outspoken about WWE. And good for her, because she was calling them out on stuff. And she knew at that time officials were not taking women's wrestling seriously. She was tired of it. You can't blame her. Even before she came to WWE first in like 2003, and she was already a prominent name before then. I want to say, wasn't she this is like 20 something years ago, so she in Japan before then, or she was doing the indie scene?
She was on the independent circuit.
Okay, because she was getting some buzz at the time, because I remember her name popping up on the internet at the time. And then when she made her debut in WWE, they gave her she won the women's championship the first night, and then it she kind of had that botch, and then it went downhill from there. And then she came back a second time, and then when she had enough, I remember her sliding out in the ring, eliminating herself, and that was
that was
her saying no.
Iconic, absolutely iconic. Liv, yes, it was so good.
Arlene says Gail Kim knew her worth. She's right. You right. You right.
Yes.
You did.
Mm-hmm.
Can't blame her.
No. And no shade on the women who stayed either and tried to work within that and tried to change that. Because Lita and Trish obviously have, set the foundation of changing what women's wrestling was in that company. Now they did kind of do stuff that I was not a fan of, obviously. Right. And I'm not throwing shade on them because they felt like they had no choice. But yeah, for Gail just to stand up and go, I'm not doing this.
Yeah.
I know what I'm worth, and I'm going to go prove that I have something to offer to wrestling. Amazing.
I think everybody just has their own reason for that stuff, and maybe they'll talk about that one day. And but yeah, I'm pretty sure Lita and Trish got a whole bunch of stories to tell.
Yeah, they're just not saying them right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They will soon.
We'll hear.
Yeah. Shane, I see your comment. Jacqueline is one of my favorites.
Yes, Jacqueline, Miss Jack.
He said he's not a fan of ladies versus men, but Jacqueline could take on anyone. You wouldn't want to cross her in a dark alley. I know that.
Yeah, she's a former cruiserweight champion too.
Yep, so she was the referee in WWE at one point too. So she's made history in her own right.
All right. Speaking of the four horsewomen and Sasha versus Bailey, and we're going to talk about the women's revolution next. And it kind of started a little bit. Well, it started in the public eye with the hashtag on social media with Give Divas a Chance, because fans were getting tired. I think they were seeing NXT, and then they were seeing the women's the main roster and going, okay, why can't we have this on television? It's the same company. Give those girls a chance. So it's been absolutely crazy because, like Alora said, her and I have been wrestling fans since we were young girls in the, early 90s. And we never even dreamed that this is what women's wrestling would look like at that time. I mean, we were like really excited about Lita because, she was the one girl doing all these crazy stunts and everything. And we kind of thought that was all it was going to ever be. And it was just, so this is just mind blowing the way that women's wrestling is, and just how many women's matches are on WrestleMania this year. It's unbelievable almost. I love every minute of it. So I know a few of, I don't know, Michaela, well, some of it. How did you guys feel during the women's revolution and we finally getting all of these first Royal Rumble, first all women's pay-per-view, first Hell in a Cell, first ladder matches, Money in the Bank, everything? It's just been so overwhelming. I just want to get your all's thoughts and feelings on those types of things.
I can start it off. Well, now that you're talking about it, I still remember that segment that has Stephanie McMahon, Team Bella, and then with Charlotte, Becky, and Sasha debuting on the main roster. That segment, it still plays in my mind because that was kind of like, it kind of solidified like, okay, this revolution is beginning. Granted, it was like rumbling under the surface with like the NXT women and a developmental system outworking and outperforming women on the main roster. So it was already rumbling, but when that segment happened, for me, in my opinion, that was kind of like what really officially kicked the revolution off. And granted, being that I was already a fan of various women's wrestlers in various promotions, particularly in Japan, I was always questioning why WWE's women's main roster, especially with the global platform that they have, they weren't doing like the same things. that their NXT counterparts were doing. So once that happened, that was really exciting for me. Granted, I'm still kind of young, but I still saw some of that evolution, how things have changed. When you saw like the Divas division, they were only barely out there for 5 minutes, and now you get to see women have like 15 to 20-minute matches, their main event and pay-per-views. And then Sasha and Charlotte, like I love their feud. That's a personal favorite feud of mine, probably for this past decade, one of my favorites. They were having Hell in a Cell matches, Falls Count Anywhere matches, main eventing pay-per-views. So that was really what solidified that revolution for me. And I know that with that, it does come with like that stigma against the word diva or divas. It's kind of like a bad word nowadays, but in a way, it's kind of like it still is part of the story of how we got to this point. So you can't like really leave that out, because the women that were still being referred to as divas, they were still fighting and clawing for those positions to see like where the women are now today. So I really think, and it's crazy, it's almost been a decade since this really started. And it's still evolving, it's still changing. We're getting new talent. And, I'll go ahead and point this out, but the women on NXT 2.0, all of them are really talented. And it's just amazing to see how fast that they learn. And even some of the current women on the main roster even pointed this out. Like, they're really learning super fast. So the future of WWE's women's division, I feel, is in great hands.
Shanti?
Okay, I can go next. I'm gonna listen to everybody else. Okay. Kiana basically summed it up, I think. I don't think nobody else can say anything. Man, I mean, the women's revolution, I feel like for me, it kind of had ups and downs. It's kind of like you seen it start and then kind of go back down, and then it start and then kind of go back down. Because it's kind of like I always think about like Alundra Blaze when she threw the title in the trash can. I was like, oh no, she didn't. And it's kind of like, okay, is something gonna happen after this? And it's like nothing. It's like, okay, well, if you don't do nothing afterwards, I guess. Mm-hmm. And then like I mentioned, like the Lita and Trish match, it was kind of like, okay, you gonna do something after this? It's kind of like, yeah, we're just gonna do this match and nothing gonna happen. And I was also thinking while Michaela was talking about the Sasha versus Bayley match, I was also thinking over here. I think about the match against Trish Stratus and Mickie James at WrestleMania. I was like, that match was good. I was like, that match was kind of bomb. It's kind of, okay, you're going to do something. Yeah, it was like, you're going to do something afterwards with this. It's kind of like, yeah, okay, yeah, y'all did WrestleMania. It's kind of like every time a woman, women would do something that was like outstanding and kind of like a standing ovation. It's kind of like, we ain't going to do nothing. So I think finally, they finally just put their foot down. I think Stephanie McMahon, which I like her too. I think Tina know that. I have a Stephanie McMahon crush. She's my crush, my girl crush. But I think she finally put her foot down. It's like, you know what? I'm getting tired of us peaking, like kind of peaking up, like with the women's revolution and kind of like pulling it back down. It's kind of like a big mountain. So she's like, you know what? Y'all want this? I'm gonna give it to you. And then that's what she did. She delivered what we all wanted as women or little girls growing up. And it's kind of like now seeing them evolve from like up and down like a roller coaster. It's kind of like, okay, now we at a steady pace to where we can see them do like Hell in a Cell matches, Elimination Chambers, Iron Man matches, all these different matches that we only see guys do. And it's kind of like now we can actually see our favorite female wrestlers. It's kind of like now I can probably say I want to see Bianca Belair go against Charlotte Flair doing a cage match, and it probably gonna happen because you can actually see it now. So, but I like what Kiana said. She basically summed it up, I think, for us. So it's kind of like I think for the men, it's kind of like it wasn't no ups and downs as it was for the women's revolution because the men was already there. It's like it's already established. But like for the women, we had lots of ups and downs. So it's kind of like as you look back at those, it's kind of like why they didn't do nothing behind that? Like they could have did some way back then. But it's kind of like we ain't gonna do nothing with this. So I think with the help of social media and everybody getting hype around Bailey's and Sasha's match, it's kind of like, okay, now we gotta do something. Because back then they didn't have the people, didn't have a platform to really say what they wanted to say, and then they would see it. So now, since everything's evolved around social media, it's kind of like, okay, now we see what they want, so we gotta deliver. It's like it's a no way chance that they can't deliver what we asked for. So, I think social media and the women's revolution kind of went hand in hand, because it really started with like the hashtag and everybody saying, Sasha and Bailey's match was like what Michaela said, imperfect but perfect. It was imperfect, but it was the perfect timing and the perfect place.
Mhm.
So it's kind of like everything kind of built from there, really. So it's kind of like, I think stuff like that kind of go hand in hand. So it just worked perfectly, I think. So a round of applause to all those women that was kind of involved in that, but probably didn't think about, what they was doing at the time. And now they probably look back like, man, I helped start it there or whatever. So I think it's cool. So that's my intake on it. It was kind of like, what the heck is happening? But it was real cool. So
Mhm.
I guess I could talk.
Go ahead.
Well, with the start of the women's revolution, when the debut of debut Sasha, Charlotte, and Becky, I was actually at Raw, and I had like third row. The ticket I bought was way too expensive, and but anyway, I was like, this better be a great Raw, or I will never go again. And I remember being in the line that day at Phillips. Well, State Farm now is Phillips Arena at the time. It was before the reno. I just remember I was in line with my friends and stuff, and people were like, "Hey, they're saying that they spotted Charlotte and them in the parking lot underneath the arena," and I was like, "Oh God, no, that ain't happening. No." I'm so used to hearing stuff like that and being disappointed, So I was just like, they ain't coming out. And even before I made it to the show, I was sitting there thinking, I really want to wear my Sasha shirt, and I didn't. I wore my Hounds of Justice shirt. So, but anyways, I was like, yeah, they ain't gonna. I seen they were doing house shows. I had saw Charlotte at a live event like a few months prior. They were doing the house shows and just testing everything out, I guess. And anyway, so I go in there, and then when the segment actually happened, I mean, it got a huge ovation. Like, you knew this was big, and like everybody around me was so like me, and everybody that was around me was just so excited. Like, we were like, the Bellas are about to get schooled now. They don't know what they're getting into. I mean, we were talking all kinds of trash. Yeah, that was a great moment. And I wrote about my experience on Diva Dirt, and I said I need to watch this segment again because I never watched it since since I was there. It was for the five-year anniversary of their debut, and I just cried. Like, I was like, I can't believe I was here for that, and everything that followed after that. It was a lot to take in. Yeah. I mean, just I never like I never thought we would see women main event WrestleMania. I never thought I thought it was a once in a lifetime thing with the Ronda Rousey thing. Cause Ronda Rousey, right? Now we're seeing it more. Sasha and Bianca, not only did they main event WrestleMania, they're both Black women. That was big.
Yeah.
And both amazing in their own right. So, and another thing too that I want to mention is I love seeing like Trish and Lita, and more importantly, Beth Phoenix being able to, come back and work with these ladies a little bit, because Beth Phoenix is one that it was like between the Trish Lita era and what we know now. She was in that period. I would say definitely her and AJ Lee.
Yeah.
So
Love AJ.
yes.
AJ
And
Lee
she
and
don't get enough
Caitlyn
credit, and it's
were
sad
putting on
that
bangers.
it's sad that she's kind of blacklisted. They did a piece. They did a documentary on the women's evolution on WWE Network, and AJ Lee was not mentioned at all. I really had a problem with that. Otherwise, the documentary was superb. But yeah, seeing Beth Phoenix, Trish, Lita, coming back, working with these ladies is always so good to see. And then when you have the women's rumble now, that was a big thing for me. Have the women's Royal Rumble, that was awesome. You see people like Molly Holly came back, and Shane mentioned her a few minutes ago, how underrated she was. I would love to see her come back and work with somebody. Molly Holly, you had let's see, Victoria.
Her too.
She showed up in the Rumble. So stuff like that. It's really a nice treat to see. So but yeah, it's this is kind of heavy.
Kayla.
I mean, I didn't really watch. I started watching wrestling in 2020.
Right.
So I didn't really like watch the full revolution happen. But like I said, women's wrestling is what got me into wrestling to begin with. So my first ever like match that I watched by myself was the Elimination Chamber match where oh goodness, Shayna Baszler won. And
Yes.
Shayna Baszler, first of all, they're not using her correctly because Shayna Baszler is a scary bitch. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Shayna
Somebody had
Baszler,
to say it.
she's an MMA fighter, right? Like she just throws hands. She's crazy. And you're not utilizing her. I'm getting all yes. But
she's an amazing mat technician.
I know. She's incredible. She's incredible, and she has that like just scary edge to her that I just think works really well. So anyway, that was my first like match that I watched by myself, was that Elimination Chamber match, and I was like, this Shayna Baszler lady, and I guess this is why I gravitate towards women's wrestling and deathmatch. This Shayna Baszler lady looks like she could beat the crap out of a man. That's what I thought when I was watching.
I definitely don't want to be somewhere with Shayna like by myself. Like I need backup. Like I need 7 people behind me. Yeah.
No. So yeah, I mean, I watched like that match, and then I just watched more and more matches of. So I watched through the women's revolution. I never really got to see it happen in full time. But then reflecting, like talking to my boyfriend about it and knowing how important it was, and then seeing like, frankly, I think that the women's wrestling is the only good thing about the WWE right now, because the storylines are not that great. I think maybe it's gotten better, but for a long time, it was the women's wrestling that was important. And I think that says a lot about the performers and what they do and how much they put into it. And so I think that there's a lot more fire underneath their butts when it comes to putting on great matches and doing fantastic jobs. Again, that's why Sasha and Bayley went so hard, because they knew that it was on their shoulders and they carried it, So, yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love this because everyone is like is coming from a different background and has approached wrestling from a different angle. And that's just beautiful. So before we move on to our next thing, I kind of want to ask, to me, the women's revolution didn't just changed the way that, especially males, the male wrestling fan viewed women's wrestling. But it kind of, and there are some still out there that are horrible, but it also kind of changed how they view women's wrestling fans too, and go, oh wait, they actually know what they're talking about. They're real fans. They're not just here to look at the cute guy in the pants, And it, like, growing up, it was so hard because everybody was judging you, like men, women, everyone. Like the guys would be like, that's not very feminine to watch wrestling. It's a man's show. It's a man's sporting event, whatever you want to call it. And then the women are looking down on you like, that's gross, So I think that they are starting to realize that it's not just the women, with the realization that women can wrestle. I think that they're coming to realize that women can do all of the things in pro wrestling media. There's more women in wrestling media now. Denise is going to be on Busted Open Radio, and you have Issa on Lucha Libre Online. We have Peaches and Power Bombs, where it's me and Alora on our little podcast too, and it's been a journey. It's been a journey. So I don't know if anyone has any stories of growing up as a female wrestling fan and interacting with other wrestling fans and almost having to defend your fandom almost.
Yeah.
It's been crazy.
Yeah, I understand it completely. I got a whole bunch of boy cousins, so it's kind of like I had to watch wrestling because it's just like all boys. So it's kind of like I had nothing else to do. It's like if I'm gonna watch that or do nothing completely. So it's kind of like when I did meet somebody like a guy or something, like a little boy. It's kind of like you watch wrestling. I'm like, that's all I can do. I can't watch nothing else. Like my brother will put me in the sharpshooter. That crap hurt, Like I'm like, why I gotta be in the sharpshooter? Why I can't do it to you? He always doing something to me. Like I've been in the figure 4 before that. That's very uncomfortable.
That's not fun. My brother used to do that too.
So I'm like, so I understand completely. It's kind of like, so when I finally seen like women wrestlers coming in and kind of like, doing stuff, I'm like, can I do the sharpshooter on you? I mean, like Natalia do it, so can I do it on you real quick, DJ? He's like, no. I'm like, well, you do it on me. Like you do it on me, like Bret Hart. So, but I understand it completely. It's kind of like you got to prove that you're talking about. It's kind of like you just not talking about this. It's kind of like if a girl watch football, it's kind of like, yeah, I know about all this about football. It's kind of like, no, you don't. It's like, yes, I do. Just because I'm a girl don't mean I don't know what I'm talking about. So
it's kind of like judging book by its cover.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. I always say you got to read the pages before you judge the cover.
Mm-hmm.
at least read the first 5 pages. Come on now.
Oh yeah, I used to get picked on all the time too. Oh, is it you just like it because of the guys? And now I'm pushing 40, so I'm more confident, and I'm like, I'm like, if the guys can watch for the women, come on now. But for us, I know for me, growing up, even yearning for more with women, with the guys, the stories that they told, the legacies they were building, it was an escape for me. And I know it was an escape for so many people. And people that don't watch wrestling, they just see the silly stuff that makes like mainstream media. Mm-hmm. They just shake their heads at it. They don't understand they don't understand the drive behind it. It's almost like a movie. And but yeah, it's like, well, yeah, I'm a healthy heterosexual female. I'm not dead. But at the same time, it's an escape. It's, they're telling a story. We can forget about our problems for a little while. Mm-hmm. Let's see. And I just want to bring up an example. When the Shield debuted, it was like the hottest thing, right? And it was the hottest storyline WWE for some time, and I just remember that is it like them, I'll say CM Punk, you know, they were going up against authorities. They, you know, mainly CM Punk because he talked about it, but the Shield just did what they wanted to do. I feel like it inspired me to stand up for myself at, you know, primarily on the job. A lot of people don't take me seriously. You know, so I learned from them too. You know, it's okay to stand up for yourself. You know, if they're going to take you down, don't go down without a fight, you know. So, and let's see. And then, you know, you have Trish, and Trish was a major inspiration for me. You know, as many times she got knocked down and got involved in not so favorable storylines, she got back up and she keeps going. And she's 46 now, and she looks the best she has ever looked. Like, just when I thought she couldn't look any better, she just amazes me. Arlene mentioned earlier that she wished Lita didn't have so many injuries. She could have done more than she accomplished. And I agree with that, but I love the fact that Lita can do these little things like her tag team title reign with Becky Lynch right now. I absolutely love that for the fact, you know, this is something that, you know, we didn't think we would see Lita competing again after she broke her neck. So, yeah. But yeah, just, I know I'm rambling again, but yeah, okay. I got picked on for it and everything, but there's so much more behind it. Huh?
This is your show. You can ramble on.
I know, but we have guests and it's rude.
Like, we just here. We just here at this point. But I like to also mention before we move on, I have to agree about the Trish thing. I mean, Trish looked fantastic. I'm like, go ahead, Trish. You look better than me. But, you know, I mean, body-wise. I'm like, go ahead. But I was also thinking about, because you mentioned AJ Lee earlier, which I was thinking about AJ Lee. So I'm like, I love me some AJ Lee. Even though she was kind of crazy, but I was like, you know, she doing good. But I was thinking about when Paige came and she came in and stole the title from AJ after she had it for like God knows how many days. I'm like, hey, it was like, it was kind of like, I hate to see her lose it, but it was like, it was good. You know, at the same time, it's kind of like NXT girl can come up here and knock, I mean, event girl off, but it was like, it was a good little feud happening after that. And like you were saying, like the feud stuff. Some people might not understand like the feuding. You get into it. It's kind of like after a while, it's kind of like you get into it. It's kind of like you can't help but to enjoy it and get involved in it. And like we was talking about, like all kind of like the old matches that we was mentioning, like the feuding to get to that point of that match is kind of like you get invested in it because it's kind of like it become involved in your life because you watch it. You go in there and watch it every week to see what's gonna happen. So it's kind of like you can't help but to be involved in it. And like the guy thing, do you watch it just to watch the guys? Maybe. You know, ain't no wrong with me something watching Drew McIntyre.
Right.
Like, you know, I sit there watching him. I ain't saying
wow, he comes out in them jeans. It's like, woo.
You know, like, I don't mind watching him.
Don't get me started.
Look, ain't nothing wrong with that, you know. I don't mind watching Edge every once in a while. That's kind of like I don't mind it.
Yeah.
He was my childhood crush. Edge was my childhood crush.
See, look, I'm picking up all her childhood questions.
Y'all could like tell me nothing. Shawn Michaels back in 1996. Oh my God, he didn't age well, bless his heart. But
that's my mom.
Back in the day, 1996.
He didn't age well. You have a point.
No, he didn't. My mom will text me sometimes and talk about Hangman Adam Page. Like, you see him? I see him, Mom.
I don't blame him. I like Adam too.
we actually, this is funny, and Kiana will probably laugh at this too, because I always say that Samoans are my weakness. Yeah, The Rock started it. It was his fault, and I loved him first before he was voted sexiest man alive. Thank you very much. Anyway,
Right.
the Mister and I was watching this video on YouTube the other day, and it was this town in Alaska that has everybody resides in this one building, like a condo building. And the lady, so this guy was interviewing this lady, and he was like, "Well, who all lives here?" And she was like, "Oh, a bunch of Samoans live here. They come from Samoa to look for a better opportunity." The Mister looks at me, and he's like, "You're not going." I'm like, "Come on now."
I can't go. Like, can I at least get a peek? At least? I don't blame you. Hey, I mean, ain't no wrong with watching.
I was nice. I sent a friend of mine the link to it, and I told her, if you're looking to relocate, this is the perfect place for you. Take it, and make sure while you're there.
Look, and make sure while you're there, send me some pictures, okay? Make sure.
Right.
Yeah, the Rock and Roman. I think that's where that started.
Yeah.
Now everybody's looking for Samoans that look like them.
I know. Gosh. It's just sometimes you just wonder, like, why? No, it's okay. I love my Mister. He's anyway.
I'm not gonna bring up everyone's comment because there's a lot, but I will go through some of these. Our friend Wade from Ring Scoops Media says, "I saw Shayna wrestle in 2015 for Stardom when they ran some shows out here in Southern Cal, and I was instantly blown away. I knew she was going to be a star. That's awesome." And our friend Brina Royce says, "Hello. He will be on our show in May. We're excited about that." And Arlene says that she's been watching wrestling since the 90s and that she caught a lot of crap for it too. And let's see. Shane says, "Gorgeous ladies of wrestling in the late 80s need some love too. Glow was an all-women show." Absolutely.
I need to check out some of those shows.
I know, I do too.
It's so much content. It's like,
I gotta check it out.
Life.
I remember
what happened to Michaela.
I remember when the TV show for Glow came out on Netflix. Me and my brother watched it to death. I'm like, like as soon as it came out, we was just like watching it. We was waiting for like every episode to come out. We was just watching it. And now, it's like now I want to go back and rewatch it again just so I can see. Sometimes we rewatch stuff, you get more information from it than the first time you watch it. So now I'm definitely gonna go back and rewatch it during this month.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, we're going to move on to current things. We'll talk of some stuff, unless anybody else has anything else to say about the Women's Revolution or any of those kind of things. But I thought we could talk a little bit about what's happening nowadays on television. And Michaela can also tell us what might be happening in the women's death match round 2. I like I said, that's not my cup of tea, so I have no idea.
There's a lot for me to tell you. It's very exciting right now. So yes,
there's a lot going down.
Go right ahead.
Oh, there you are. Hi.
Hi. Sorry, I had to step away for a second. So we'll talk women in deathmatch really fast because there's a lot of really cool things happening. So I am currently wearing my Casey Catal shirt. Casey Kirk. She is a deathmatch wrestler. She wrestles for ICW primarily. She's also wrestled for GCW. She wrestled for No Peace. She wrestles all around the place. But she recently won the American Death Champ. She won the American Death Championship, Deathmatch Championship. Try to say that fast. You can't. So anyway, she won that, and she's the first woman to hold that title. And she had this eight match run to win the title. And she wrestled some of the roughest guys in deathmatch. She wrestled John Wayne Murdoch. She wrestled her husband, Casey Kirk. She wrestled Danny Demento. She wrestled a bunch of people who Eric Ryan to go and win this belt. And she did. And she right now is a huge name in deathmatch. She gets booked all the time. People talk about her all the time. And they talk about her. she's this tiny woman. She's about my height. I'm 5'1". She's about my size. I'm probably like 140 or whatever. So she's a small woman, but she fights like a man, and she like has no fear, just goes through glass, takes gussets to the head, light tubes, whatever. She just takes it all, and she doesn't care. And so this woman has led the revolution, I would say, for women's wrestling and deathmatch. And right now there's women like Kennedy Copeland who are coming up, and like Sawyer Wreck, who just wrestled at Tremont, and she just absolutely crushed it. And you see all these women who are now looking up to, I would say Casey Kirk is a trailblazer in deathmatch wrestling, and she's done a lot for having women be taken seriously within that realm. And now deathmatch is experiencing its own women's revolution of women coming in and main eventing and winning titles. Like Masha Slamovich just won the GCW title against Nick Gage. So like,
Wow.
These are tough women who are making a name for themselves right now in indie wrestling. And I would say the other really special thing about indie wrestling, which is a nice little update, but I'm sure people already know this, but the cool thing is that women wrestle men. So women in deathmatch are wrestling most of the time other men. And so you see, it's very empowering for me to see a woman go up against a man and have her be seen as a legitimate threat, have her be seen as a legitimate person to go up against. And that's what is happening right now in women's deathmatch. So it's really cool.
All this talk about deathmatch wrestling makes me want to go back and watch FMW and just watch these matches. Like I might have to watch them back tonight.
Mm-hmm. It's fun. It's really fun. And I would recommend go find Casey Kirk on ICW, on IDW TV. She's an absolute killer, like incredible woman. So yeah.
I want to mention one thing too, that I know we all forgot to mention at one point. Someone that definitely needs to be recognized, and I wouldn't feel right if I just let it go. Luna Fashawn. I know we didn't really mention Sable either, but her and Sable was between the time Alundra Blaze / Medusa left to then. Luna and Sable's feud was a key point in revitalizing the women's division at the time. Was it perfect? No. But I loved their match at WrestleMania 14 because Sable went in on Luna. But Luna doesn't get the credit that she deserves. And they actually, WWE, they actually have her in the Legacy wing of the Hall of Fame. So as for a proper induction, I just feel like that's wrong. So yeah. I watched
She's never been champion either.
Huh?
She never held the title either.
No. And I watched Dark Side of the Ring about Luna, and I think it was WrestleMania, and they got backstage after the match, and they gave Sable flowers and not her, and I felt like that was so wrong. Mm-hmm. Like they, I can't remember who it was that said it, but they said that really bothered her, as it should, because she didn't get the credit that she deserves, and I hate that. And now she's not here to get typically get those flowers. So I just wanted to mention her, that I feel like she was a vital part in women's wrestling, and definitely doesn't get the credit she deserves.
Absolutely.
I agree.
So we have a lot of women's matches on WrestleMania, and there's actually going to be like a tag team thing too, but I'm not sure who's going to be in that, so that's why I didn't include it in this. But just the fact that we're here, where we have 3, potentially 4 matches, women's matches on WrestleMania, the biggest wrestling event, of the year, is just incredible, because you'd be lucky to get one. Sometimes not even that. And all of these matches are going to be really great. I think Rhea Ripley, you talk about girl crushes.
Girl,
You know how I feel.
I love Rhea.
She's a whole different animal. My goodness, she comes out to the beat of her own drum, and I'm just like, she's younger than me, but I want to be her when I grow up. So she's amazing. I love her. So
well, you already know how I feel about Rhea. You Tina, no, I'm not a big. I like Rhea, but I'm not her biggest fan. Like she, I'll be like, okay, I like that, but for me, with Rhea versus Charlotte, I already know Tina's going for Rhea. I'm going for Charlotte. Tina already know this. So Asuka versus Bianca. I love Asuka.
I love Asuka too.
Yeah, but it's kind of like
I'm split on that one.
Yeah, it's kind of gonna split, but my heart is leaning towards Bianca because I love me some Bianca, So I'm like, come on, Bianca, but I like Asuka too, so it's a hard pick. So for me, I'm kind of okay with either or, but I'm going for Bianca and the Trish, Lita, and Becky. I'm going for them. Ain't no hope for the other three people. It's like for me, ain't no hope for them because just hearing Trish and Lita just got me in. I was like, I already told them before you guys came on. I said after the women's matches, I'm going to sleep. So I might stay up and watch Drew or somebody, and I'm going to sleep after that. So
Drew is on the card. So
yeah, I'm going to watch him, and then I'm going to go to sleep after that.
Yep, he's on the card with Gunther and Sheamus. That's going to be a banger too.
Yeah, it is.
But I think I'll go next. Out of all three of these matches, the one that I'm invested in the most is Asuka versus Bianca, mainly because Asuka and Bianca never really faced off.
Yeah,
it's gonna be a good match.
Yeah, but they were like allies at first. So when they started feuding, I was a little confused as to why they started. But then again, it kind of made sense because Bianca has kind of defended her title for a pretty long time. She's held the title over a year now. So I think it does make sense to have like a fresh opponent. And Asuka is definitely a fresh opponent for her. And honestly, Asuka is one of my favorites of all time. And also currently because she's just amazing at what she does. Mm-hmm. But if I had to pick between the two, I'm kind of torn, but I would like to say Bianca because a part of me does not want her to lose the title yet. So we'll stick with Bianca. And then with Rhea versus Charlotte, not as invested in this match as I am for the Raw Women's title. And I say that because one, the two had feuded for a while, a couple of years back. And honestly, they had like some good moments, but it was kind of like up and down for me. So I couldn't really like get into it. I don't know if it was like the chemistry may have been off for me at that time. I mean, it could be different this time around, but if I had to pick, I want to play devil's advocate and say Rhea might walk away with it. I don't know why my gut is telling me to choose her, but I'm going to go with Rhea. And then for the 6-woman tag, definitely Becky, Lita, and Trish. And I say that because ever since Damage Control came together, I just feel like it's a lot of wasted potential of what they can do as a faction. And just like the way they've been presented, I don't entirely like because all three of them are very talented individuals. But them together, they should be like this unstoppable force, but they haven't really been presented that way.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they've had their good moments. I'm not saying it's completely terrible. I just don't really entirely like the way they've been presented. But for this match, I'll go with Trish, Lita, and Becky. I mean, that's like an all-star team. So why not?
Michaela?
So I haven't really been, to be frank, I haven't really been keeping up with the WWE as much.
That's okay.
But
we understand.
We got you.
It's rough out there. So, but I do love all of these lovely women, and I I've been following Rhea's career since she really started. And I thought she was really cool. I think something really neat about Rhea is that she, when she first started, she was just like the typical pretty blonde haired woman who maybe wasn't the most unique. And then she decided to change her entire everything, and she is where she is. And so I think that that's really cool, and I respect that. I respect a woman who will just willingly change how she looks to fit her personality a lot more. And I believe that her look fits her personality a lot more. I think Rhea is the up and coming new thing within the WWE. I think that they are really pushing her right now, and she deserves that push. And I wouldn't be surprised if Charlotte were to allow for her title to be dropped to Rhea, because Charlotte was the woman who was part of the Revolution. And if I know anything about veterans, I know that they are more than willing to take a loss if that means that the up and coming people will shine, at least the really good veterans. And so I wouldn't be surprised if Rhea were to win that belt. And when it comes to Asuka and Bianca, I mean, that's just like a banger. Like, Asuka is an incredible, just classic wrestler, just really good. And Bianca obviously is very talented as well. So that's really a toss-up between the two of them. I would think that, again, with the veteran move, I would be surprised if Asuka would take that belt from Becky or from Bianca, because she probably views her and her run as something that's important. So at least with those choices. And then obviously, like, the WWE is not going to have Trish and Lita lose.
No,
So,
Definitely not. True.
like,
If they do that, everybody's gonna be so mad.
I'm sorry, David, but you're not Trish and Lita, so you don't get to win. That's just my thought on that one. So yeah. I would be curious to see whether or not they bring up Toxic Attraction, which is the NXT tag team that they're really into right now. So that might be the other match. That might be the other people that you would look out for. You know, they're the hot new thing within NXT, and I wouldn't be surprised if they were to bring them up for this big moment. So I'm just saying.
maybe.
Who knows? Have to wait and see.
You want me to go?
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, I have to agree with the 6-woman tag. There's no way Trish, Lita, and Becky are losing, unless, you know, I could see a dusty finish or DQ or something crazy, but I don't. But I think this is going to be a good match. I agree that Damage Control has been up and down. I overall love the idea of Damage Control. Some things should have happened, some things shouldn't have happened, but I'm glad they're still together. We might see cracks in either team after this. We could very well see this going to SummerSlam, depending. But either way, like I said earlier, you get to see Trish and Lita work with, you know, Becky, Bayley, Io, and Dakota Kai, and that, I know that's got to be really cool for them. So it's going to be something. I would say something new, something fresh, even though Lita and Becky's been battling with them already, but adding Trish into the mix, it just adds a whole lot more. And either way, they're just going to kick butt.
It's going to be great.
Asuka versus Bianca is going to be that sleeper match. It's going to be a banger. The question is Bianca ready for Asuka?
Nobody's ready for Asuka.
No,
Yeah,
of course
no,
not.
nobody. you can't mentally or physically prepare for Asuka because you don't know what she got up her sleeve. So it's kind
You
of
don't
like,
win, you survive.
To me, they're kind of doing this tweener thing with Asuka. Is she going to be the villain or is she going to be the baby face? Is this just going to be a straight up grudge match?
She did last night on Monday Night Raw. Her and Bianca were in a tag team, and at the end of that match, Asuka did attack Bianca. So
Oh, she did?
she did.
I think that's solidified. She's probably
Okay. Well, my TV's out right now, so yeah. There was some work done at the house over the weekend, and the satellite got knocked out. That's why I haven't been able to watch. So yeah, yeah, and also to me, Asuka did a little bit of psychology too with the mist coming out of her mouth last week when she was giving Bianca back the title. So like Asuka's like trying to get in her head. So I appreciated that. I wouldn't be mad if Asuka won. If Bianca wins, I'd be all right with that too. I could definitely see see either or. And so we shall see. That's the one I'm kind of torn on. As far as Rhea versus Charlotte went, I like the fact that Rhea stated the reason why she chose Charlotte. She said she admitted that when they faced off at WrestleMania 36, that she knew she wasn't ready. And she feels like she's on a whole nother level, which she is, doing big things with Judgment Day. She's ready. She's unstoppable right now. And what better way than to take down the Queen? And I think Rhea's going to take it. And I think, and the thing is too, since it's the SmackDown Women's Championship, do we see her departing from Judgment Day to do her own reign of terror over on SmackDown, or do we see her go between both shows?
Well, Rhea,
that's my question.
I don't see her leaving right now. I don't.
Yeah, me either.
She's integrated in all of the Judgment Day storylines. She's in the Finn Balor and Edge storyline. She's in the Dominic versus his dad storyline. And all of those. She is all over that show right now. I think she probably has the most segments out of anybody, male or female. So no, I don't see her leaving yet.
Okay. I was going to bring up too, Ron mentioned it too, and Michaela did say she's a little behind. They did split up Toxic Attraction, but that don't mean they could come back as a team. JC Jane turned on Gigi Dolan. They kind of have a thing going on, and then Mandy Rose got fired. That was a bunch of controversy behind that.
Right, I forgot about that.
Yeah, but I agree. Toxic Attraction was my favorite thing in NXT for a while. I loved them.
Yeah.
So that's not to say they might not come back as a team. Anything can happen, really. We've seen stranger things happen. Another person that could be called up is Roxanne Perez. Obviously, she's well loved by the crowd, and apparently, backstage too. I think a lot of people are high on her, and she's only, I think, 21, so she's got a bright future ahead. I could see her being on Raw after Mania. That would be my top pick as far as women goes if they do that.
Okay, I know it's getting late, so we're going to talk about AEW because I don't want to leave the AEW women's roster out of our discussion at all. So we'll go over that a little bit, and then we'll probably wrap it up because I know these ladies probably want to get off and continue their evening. But I didn't want to just leave them out because they're on television too, and doing their perspective stuff. AEW women's roster, I will say personally, I think that they have a lot of room to grow. I don't think that they started off the way that I would have done it. Honestly, they have a lot of room to grow, and I'll try to be as nice as possible. But I think they're trying a little bit more with what they're doing right now. It's not exactly resonating the way that I think that they're wanting it to, but the fact that, especially with the outcasts versus the homegrown talent stuff, at least there's Britt Baker, there's Tony Storm, there's Soraya, there's Riho, there's Ruby Soho, and the like, and Jamie Hayter, and there's a lot more women integrated into it. So, and they're getting a little bit more time with it as well. So I'm happy about that. And I'm really happy that Jade is about to get a formidable opponent, because before she'd come out on Rampage that nobody watches, squash somebody in 2 seconds and go home. And now that Taya Valkyrie has come out and did that face-to-face altercation with her last week, it looks like we're finally going to get a really good Jade segment. And I think I'm really interested to seeing what she does with someone like Taya Valkyrie. So that's exciting.
I like that. And I like Jade. And Jade kind of reminds me of Bianca Belair a little bit. I don't know if she reminds you, but I think it's just the way she holds herself. But for me, one of my fantasy matches is Jade versus Bianca Belair. I think that'll be a cool match to see probably later on in the future. But like you said, Tina, I think the AEW women, they still have time and room to grow. But so far as this right here, Jade and Taya, I think it'll be great. I mean, because like you said, Jade will just come out and beat up everybody in 2 seconds and then go home for the rest of the night and take a nice little bath and eat some popcorn and watch a horror movie and go to sleep. So I think now, since we actually seeing her do a match that's like kind of worth watching, it gives her more, I think, more fans and more people start watching her. Because not saying people did at first, but it's kind of like it's more, you get more into it now than before. So I like that.
Yeah, I would agree. And honestly, compared to when Jade first started to now, she's definitely improved her skills a lot. And I think with Taya coming in, I think it's really not the perfect time, but it is a good time for her to really show like what she can bring with someone that's very experienced like Taya. She has like over a decade of experience, world traveled, and she's just incredibly talented. So I'm really interested in that feud. Probably more so than the Outcast and Homegirl talent feud, I must say. Probably because it reminds me of certain like invasion angles that have happened in the past. I'm thinking like WCW invasion angle, the NWO angle in a way. So it kind of reminds me of that, but I'm not knocking it per se, because it's a good way to showcase more of the women and give them more TV time. But at the same time, I don't want it to be like a recycled version of previous invasion angles, if that makes sense. But, as I always say, anything can happen. So we just have to wait and see how it evolves over time. But that's what it's looking like to me currently.
Michaela, you were making some faces a while ago. What's going on over there?
I'm not very good at hiding my feelings.
Okay.
No, Michaela's not good with this. She'll tell you how she feels.
I do, yeah. I don't think anybody will argue with you in saying that AEW's women's division is lacking and it could really use some improvement. And it's really improved since where it began. Right. I would say that the Britt Baker Thunder Rosa match for St. Patrick's Day, the big no DQ match where Britt Baker took the thumbtacks, I would say that was the change that needed to happen within the women's division in AEW. the women saw that and they were like, oh, we need to actually step up and try to compete on this level. And then they did. And you've seen that change happen. And I will say it's gotten a lot better than how it was when it first started. But when it first started, it was terrible. And it's because that a lot of the really talented indie female wrestlers were already in the WWE. So then they were kind of like trying to figure out, okay, who do we sign? Because there are less women than there are men within wrestling. That is true, but it was rough. And then they finally were able to get people to cut promos and have a personality and whatever else. So where it was when it first started is vastly different and better than where, it was at. When it comes to the outcast and homegrown talent, I would say that is one of the more, personally for me, that is the more exciting storyline that they've had within women's wrestling in AEW. It's not the newest thing in the world, but it is at least exciting and it's something different. I trust Saraya. That woman, they say that she wrestled in her mother's womb because her mother was a wrestler. So like she's a vet, she's been around, and I trust her with this women's division. She was the unspoken hero. Paige was the unspoken hero within the women's revolution. If it weren't for Paige, the anti-diva, we wouldn't have the 4 horsewomen of wrestling, I don't believe. So I trust her in that aspect. And Ruby Soho and Toni Storm are obviously vets, fantastic wrestlers, and to have them up against Jamie Hayter and Britt Baker, those women are the up and coming talent. So it's again the thing of these veterans coming in and helping out these up and coming people. So I would say that is very exciting. But I also didn't grow up watching wrestling, so I'm like, this is new for me. Whatever.
Hey, it's a fresh perspective,
right?
We like that.
Yeah. And I like I said, I trust Saraya / Paige with everything. And when it comes to Taya and Jade, so when I first started watching wrestling, Taya was actually somebody that my partner told me about. And so then I started watching her matches and I started following her. And I was like, why has nobody picked up this woman? Like, what's going on here with this? Because she can wrestle. Like, she's incredibly talented. And then she got signed to the WWE, and the WWE was dumb, and they fired her within the, realms of firing that they did. And I thought that was stupid. And the fact that AEW finally picked her up and now she's getting this chance on the big stage, I think is huge. And I do think she will be a formidable opponent to Jade because she's not a small woman.
No.
Okay. And that's something with Jade is not a small woman. That is a big woman. And respect women, you know what I mean? And so finally she's getting an opponent within Taya who is physically going to be able to take on this opponent. I don't think that Jade is going to lose that belt. I think that they're going to fully Goldberg her and she's just going to keep on winning that belt. But I think if they were to hand off the belt to anybody, Taya would be a good option. Because that woman is been wrestling. She's been wrestling for a decade at least. Yeah. So, she's a formidable opponent. So.
And one thing real quick, before we wrap everything up, Britt Baker has done amazing things for the AEW roster. I got to go to Revolution last year, and she was the only person, male or female, who sold out her Fan Fest tickets. The only one. She everybody loves her.
She is the queen. She is that bitch. She really is. Within you, she is. She carries that division on her back. So we love.
Yeah, Jade's a star. there's no doubt in my mind. She has the look. She has it. There's room for improvement for sure. Um, and we had an interview with Vicky Dreamboat a few months back, and she said she was telling us how hard Jade worked, and she's constantly getting, she's soaking up all the advice under the learning tree she's sitting under, especially with Brian Danielson. But I think you could see the improvement slowly but surely. She reminds me of Trish, having to learn on TV in front of millions of people. That's no easy feat.
No.
So I really thought Athena was going to dethrone Jade when she debuted last year, and that didn't happen. So now that Taya Valkyrie has debuted, that is a legit threat. That's nothing to.
And shout out to Athena, who's doing awesome stuff on Ring of Honor. She's their women's champion right now.
Current Ring of Honor women's champion. Yes, ma'am. AEW, I think we're all in agreement of there's definitely room for improvement with the women's division as a whole. I feel like sometimes the women's division is the weakest link. And that's, it's no shade or anything like that. It's just, I don't know if there's, I feel like they need a little more TLC versus everybody else. And I know there's I won't say they're still in their infancy, but there's a lot of trial and error going on, and but they have the names, and I think we're seeing a little bit of we're seeing stories. We're seeing the Jade story. We're seeing the Outcasts. They're starting to come together and do something. Because Ruby Soho, she's joined them. Toni Storm has joined Saraya. I don't know where that's going to go, but I'm not going to dismiss it just yet. I'm trying to think. You got Britt Baker, Jamie Hayter. They're going to face each other sooner or later. I don't know when. I know it's coming. But I mean, the potential's there. It's just a matter of getting it together and making it work. I think they're definitely a lot better than they were when they first started. I'll say that.
Yeah.
Some comments real quick before we wrap it up. Our friend Stravi, go follow him on YouTube. He's awesome. He says, agreed on AEW about it needing some TLC. Arlene says, Jade has come a long way skill-wise. She needs someone who can keep up. I agree with that. Timothy says that the AEW women's division has improved since 2020.
Yeah, that's true.
That's true. Because for the longest time, it'd be like, oh, wait. Oh, yeah, you're the champion. You need someone to fight at the next pay-per-view. Here's Ty Conti.
Yeah.
Out of nowhere.
Yeah.
For no reason.
But she's not making out with Sammy.
Dear God, don't even go there.
Ron says, agreed with lackluster overall, but they have some bright stars that could bring them around. Baker and Hayter are leading the charge on that, in my opinion. I agree with that. And a lot of love for Jamie Hayter and Athena and Britt Baker and everyone. Ladies, thank you so much for coming and joining us. Real quick before we sign off, if y'all have anything to plug at all of what you all are doing, go ahead and have the floor. Kiana, we can start with you.
Yeah. So being that I do social media marketing for a living and I have worked with various clients, a lot of my personal work is on hold currently. But I have my YouTube channel, which is Kiana Moon, which is my name that I go by. And you can follow me on Instagram at K Moon Aesthetic Blog. Long name, but that's my Instagram handle if you want to follow me there.
Awesome. Michaela?
So I have a media company called Barbed Wire Media. You can look it up on Instagram. Barbed wire, like the wire that's barbed or whatever. So I do video, like I said, I do video work. I do slow-mo of indie matches. I do indie promos. I do indie like cool slow-mo shots of the wrestlers. So if you want to go check out my work, you can follow me there. And I've got some really cool projects in the mix. So yeah, check it out.
Shanti, you and your mom do those videos, right?
Oh yeah, we haven't done some in a while, but me and my mom, we usually do little comedic videos. It's called Penny and the Grandparents. So it's on Facebook. So you can type that in and we be doing little reels. It's about Penny. I play Penny. And she's supposed to be staying at her grandparents' house during the pandemic. And her grandparents, they always doing something crazy. It's like they trying to walk down the street naked or something. So they always doing something. Yeah, they are doing something to embarrass her. So I think the last video we did was her grandpa's brothers came to visit, and they're supposed to be entering a talent show, and it basically builds up to where they doing like they playing downstairs on the drums and the piano. They basically making noise to bother her. Her grandparents basically do stuff to bother her while she at work. And that's really, I do pictures. Well, Michaela, she do my pictures. I just stand up there and try to look nice. Shout out to Michaela. She be saucing up my pictures and videos and stuff. I mean, she's great. So you can follow my Instagram at Ashanti, but you can see those pictures. But other than that, I either come here and watch Tina's podcast and stuff. I just sit up here and watch it because I got nothing else to do. So hopefully one day I can come back on with you two lovely ladies and talk about a whole bunch of stuff. We can talk about Drew McIntyre all day. That's fine with me. So yeah, that's it for me.
Yes, and like always, everybody, like, share, subscribe to Peaches and Power Bombs on Facebook, on YouTube. Follow us on Instagram, and we got a lot of fun stuff scheduled for the next couple months, and a lot of neat guests that we're looking forward to. I know Gary Joe from Honor of the Elite will be on with us next month. And then Brino Royce, he's a double champ in the North Carolina area. He's an amazing professional wrestler. So go check him out on YouTube. He'll be on our show as well. And Alora, am I forgetting anything?
I don't think so.
All right. Well, guys, thank you so much again for joining us. Thank you, our chat, for interacting with us. And this will not be the only women's panel that we have. We will definitely have another one in the future. And if that's it, y'all stay sweet, Peaches. Bye. Good night, sweet peach. It's time to go. Good night, sweet peach. It's the end of the show. We hate to leave, but we really can't stay. So good night.